Good to be here. Welcome to our session on building a sustainable enterprise. I'm Japan Hollis. I lead sustainability at SAP for go-to-market in North America. And I'm joined with...
Mihir Go. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Mihir Go. I'm the IBM SAP technology lead across Europe. I'm also looking after sustainability from the IBM SAP practice.
Wonderful. Mihir, tell us just a little bit more about yourself, your background.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. I've been with IBM for a very long time, 25 years and counting. But in the last 12 months, I think the topic of sustainability has really been elevated up. As a distinguished engineer, this is all about technology to enable the business to transform. And I think sustainability is going to be the biggest thing since the Apollo mission. I mean, if we heard what we heard this morning around Christian Klein's message around transparent supply chains, everything to play for. The reports we hear from IPCC in the last 3 months, even before that, the COP26 messaging was very clear cut. We've got 30 months to turn this around, and it's going to take IBM, SAP, and our ecosystems partners to come together to make it work.
Yeah, thank you. I'll give just a little bit of background on myself as well. So I cut my teeth on sustainability as a procurement officer working for an SAP client. And then realized that technology was the focus of sustainability. Sustainability was data-centric, and that after working on a master's degree in sustainability, I realized that that would be far more interesting for me as a career path to try to solve problems with sustainability rather than sustainable procurement, which was one piece of it. And so I eventually migrated here to SAP and have found that now here we are with capabilities in this space and working with great partners like IBM and others, we can make a pretty significant difference on our customers and their sustainability journeys.
Absolutely agree, and this is why I think this topic is so amazing and so compelling. So Japan, tell me about what you're seeing in the marketplace around sustainability, especially where customers need to begin. And that's really often a challenge for many of our clients, right?
Yeah, so great question. So where do customers begin? Well, we're seeing them starting in different places along the sustainability journey. The first place that I see them start is typically in social. They're caring for their people, right? And historically, many companies have been out in the space for a decade producing corporate social responsibility reports where they're focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and supplier diversity, right? And then they migrated and certainly focused on energy, which is a proxy for carbon, right? Water usage, and that first began kind of within the walls of your own facility, but now it's migrated out to Scope 3 upstream, Scope 3 downstream, and how do you wrestle with that? How do you capture that? How do you influence your supply chain to give you data around their emissions so that you can collaborate together? Right? That's hard. That's a transaction that's never really taken place, right? In the normal supplier-buyer relationship, right?
Yeah,
and now within sustainability, it's becoming required. So that this is now a new topic for suppliers and buyers to address collectively, and they're going to need technology to do it, right?
Absolutely, and we see exactly the same kind of messaging. In fact, if we look across the field, all of the industries are really picking this up. It's a tier 1 or tier 2 topic, as a minimum, and we're beginning to see the CXO taking this topic very seriously. If I just call out a couple of industries, we're seeing a lot of activity in manufacturing when it comes to emissions management, the way they manage the plants and factory floor and the machinery that generates a lot of energy, that uses a lot of energy, and has potential of having high emissions. So manufacturing companies are looking at how do you reduce emissions and account for it, but also use new technology, the benefits of IoT, streaming analytics, to start feeding that into the BTP technology layer, which actually surrounds SAP. And that gives us a new level of insight that we didn't have before. The other industry is really kicking off is all around the CPG market, where they're actually dealing with the other end of the spectrum, which is all the customers that we deal with. And next generation of buyers who are prepared to pay that extra green premium to ensure that the products they buy are sustainable by design, and also taking care of the whole circularity aspect around secondary life and recycling and repurposing and reusing. And this whole mindset is taking place at the next generation of buyers in the marketplace. And the third industry, I think, is also quite interesting, is around utilities and energy and the transition to renewables. But not only that, it's the conversion from consumer to prosumer, and the idea of microgeneration and monetizing the way you generate energy at home, which is actually building a whole new ecosystem around the consumer experience. So these are three industries we've seen really active right now, and there's much more to say behind that.
Talk to me about the solutions that you're presenting now that IBM is partnering with SAP to provide customers.
So we've had a very long relationship. As you know, this year is our 50th anniversary for our long relationship of continuous innovation and collaboration. And in 2020, we announced the Evolution Partner, which is just another iteration of our continued relationship. With Evolution, we do co-creation, we co-innovate, and we go to market together with lots of great ideas. And when it comes to sustainability, we've developed a lot of new assets and use cases, and underpinned by BTP technology. So we're using S4 Core, we're using BTP, and we're innovating on top using sustainable solutions. Now, I know, for example, SAP have got the SAP Cloud for Sustainable Enterprises with all the new products that are coming to market, and our clients are really excited about that. We're also seeing the green line, as Christian called it, weaving its way through the current ecosystem of SAP products, whether it's transportation management, EWM, logistics, and all of the great stuff we get from S4HANA today. So taking advantage of all of that, we've built some use cases, and I'm just going to call out a couple of them. One is our solution around green advocacy, where we use a combination of SAP technology, where we actually help our customers choose new products and services using Watson AI to help us identify those customers who are more likely to pay the green premium for new products and solutions in that interaction. Also taking advantage of Qualtrics to provide that insight at real time. Wow. So that's an example of one solution we put it together. Another one's around manufacturing, where we actually have streaming analytics collected from the shop floor into a data lake using Data Warehouse Cloud, and then visualizing that using Analytics Cloud on top. And the good news is, you can do that today. You can do that with ECC6. You don't have to wait for S4HANA. So we want to make sure that S4HANA is definitely a destination, but we can't wait for customers to decide on that. We need to get going on sustainability right now. And that's where the action is.
Nate.
So, Japan, tell me about some of the learnings you've gathered so far in your engagement with customers so far.
So I would say that there's three big learnings: data, data, and data. Right? That's where customers are coming to us. Chief sustainability officers, CFOs, procurement officers, CHROs that are wrestling with their sustainability journey. They are all talking about how data-centric sustainability is, right? There's more to it. I'm being facetious, but that's the heart of it, is how do I get the data? Where do I get it from? I've got it in spreadsheet. It takes me too long. Can I automate this? And then the next step is really around attestation, right? The new Securities and Exchange Commission proposed ruling has an attestation clause, which means you've got to have data integrity, data assurance, and auditability so that you can sign on the bottom line the 10 key that says all of this non-financial emissions data is now as accurate, and I feel as confident about it as I do from my data coming out of my central finance system, right? In essence, where I see that we're creating green ledgers or sustainability ledgers, right, that adhere to sustainability frameworks and standards. There's lots of them, 480 around the globe, right? We need to consolidate those, and they are consolidating. And we need to do the same thing that we've done so well at SAP with general ledger creation, so that attestation works with all the big accounting firms. All the CFOs that use our solutions are very confident in the output that comes from those systems. And we're going to do the same thing for the non-financial indicators. Those are all typically externalities that are not found within the general ledger, right? So where is carbon on the general ledger? It's not there, but it impacts the company, right? Where's waste? Where's slavery in the supply chain? Where's diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's not represented in your general ledger. So you have to have important mandatory documents that governments are going to require for us to build out. And so I think that's where we have our holistic steering and reporting tools, working with partners as well to provide those general ledgers that can attest that we're making progress along the green line.
Absolutely. And in fact, you mentioned a very key point. Data is it right now. And when we talk about data, we've classified our customers into three different stages of maturity around the sustainability journey. Stage one is where 90% of customers are right now, which is around data acquisition, data ingestion, and qualifying and cleaning up the data as we move into this analytics world. And to your point around auditability and compliance and reporting, really fundamental right now. And that's essential. You can't take action on what you can't measure. So that's first step, stage one we call it. And there's a whole bunch of solutions. I know the control tower gives us a really good vantage point to begin that journey. But that's where we find a lot of challenge. But then we want to help our customers move from that stage to stage two, which is actually taking action. So you gather the insights, you learn the issues, you understand emissions, you understand waste, you do something around it. But what can you do? So that's where we bring in intelligent workflows. And we bring in AI to help fuse our business processes. So as customers move from the legacy world of ECC6 and move into S/4HANA, they take advantage of intelligent workflows using BTP technology, the analytics from SAC and Data Warehouse Cloud, the control tower solutions, the product footprint management solutions, the RDP solutions, responsible design and production, and so forth. I want to say to the customers that we work with, let's move to stage two. Let's start impacting your business in a positive way. Let's develop the new business architecture for the future. And that takes me to stage three, which is the vision of the future, which is all around being economical, being sustainable, balancing the quadruple bottom line, people, planet, profit, and purpose, and bringing around circularity into your ecosystem so that there's no such thing as waste. Everything has a purpose. Everything has reuse because somebody's waste is somebody's treasure. So the idea is to use secondary life and a marketplace for that. We're not there yet. I think we're on a journey.
Sure, we're on a journey.
But it's the vision that we like to talk about.
As you talk about those three different steps, do you see synergy between our two companies there? Maybe you want to talk just a little bit more about that.
Absolutely, and I think this is where the foundation of SAP technology really makes it work for all of us. We know how S/4HANA works. It's a done deal. It's the system of record, but it is the auditable, compliant, trusted solution that stood the test of time. We're now looking at BTP, which is where the action is. And the customers we talk to, 99% of our heterogeneous landscapes. 20%, 30%, 40% SAP footprint, and then a whole bunch of other stuff, legacy, SaaS, PaaS, everything else going on. What BTP does is the glue that brings all this together. It provides us the foundation for bringing data, insight, and then action. And with AI and workflow and all of the analytics we can bring on top, we can start to influence business processes, optimize those processes, standardize them, of course, but then take them to the next level. As I said, circularity. So that's where we see the action going forward, and we're in the process of reskilling, upskilling our teams to make sure those conversations are impactful on day one. But those journeys we talked about, the journey maps, as we take our customers forward through either a RISE conversation or even just the standard S4, is really say get back to standard, keep your core clean, and innovate around the edge using BTP.
Love that. Love that. Let me just take another stab. You talked about frameworks and sustainability, and I wanted to comment a little bit about that. That as we build out those two kind of green ledgers versus and learn from our general ledger experience. One of the things that's really interesting in sustainability is that there's just so many standards, right? I lump them into three for me to kind of keep track of them. One is voluntary standards that have been around for a while, like GRI or SASB or TCFD, and those are all morphing and consolidating. Then you've got, and I'll come back to those, but the second set is you have mandatory standards that are coming, right? We see at least two, and there've been regulation out for a while, but It's really powerful to understand that the EU taxonomy for Europe is leading the way, going to be a mandatory standard, and it's taking from the other voluntaries that have been around a while, but it's creating its own entity, which is unique, particularly for SAP customers that operate in Europe, right? It's going to be mandatory for them, and it becomes very important because many of our customers have historically simply adhered and reported on voluntary standards. But now they're going to have to do things that are regulatory and required in far more comprehensive ways than they ever had. And then the third area might be what I call the rating and ranking standards, like the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and does anybody spend any time working on that? That's hard. But those are the ones that you get kind of an accolade as a result of getting on them, right? And I think our customers need an ability to do all of that, right? And with the things that you're talking about, with the AI capability, with BTP, with Sustainability Control Tower, from wherever they are, right? Not necessarily on the latest S4 system, but on an ECC system, they can move there with the help of a partner like IBM and SAP Solutions to drive them to accomplish, and meet and fulfill all the different standards that they want to adhere to, voluntary, mandatory, or otherwise.
Absolutely agree, and this is where it's a bit of a challenge for many customers who, let's say, confusion is quite heavy in this space. So where do we begin? When we speak to our customers, we say, first of all, what are your ESG goals and objectives? Let's use an enterprise architecture framework to use those goals and objectives to bake them through the landscape and draw a line of sight between the systems of record, systems of insight, all the way up to ESG goals and objectives. And keep that line of sight active as we start to innovate and collaborate together to drive those solutions and make sure we can see the value proposition coming through, the business benefits coming through. And to your point around the green line and measuring the green ledger, it's so important because while this is evolving, the standards and framework organizations are evolving, we are collaborating together on the WBSCD, for example, on the Pathway project.
Right, yeah, the Pathway.
And there's a huge amount of interest from our customers on that side of things.
Yes.
But I think it's going to need to be a two-prong attack, right? One is to make sense of this framework organization as that evolves, but also having the agility, flexibility, and technology innovation to make sure our solutions can adapt quickly. What we don't want to have is a solution that goes into live production that cannot change. That's the last thing we want. We want flexibility and agility around the architecture to continue. That's why BTP is so important to us.
No, that makes sense. And as we think about steps that we want our customers to take in order to get there, right? To use those technologies, I might go one level up to remind customers that they need to be thinking about 5 different things to do, right? They need to be thinking about, one, have a strategy. You'll be really surprised. We've run into some customers that they start kind of in deep worrying about the data, and then they realize how impactful the decisions will be. They pause and go back to ensure that they've understood where they want to go, right? It's scary, right? It's profound as how deep sustainability goes within the business, right? And some aren't ready for that. So have a strategy first. The second would be, we talked about it, data, right? You've got to figure out how to get data back into business processes. And then the last 3 are what I call the chasing zeros, right? It's all about climate change, taking action there, taking action on circularity that you mentioned, which is so key and ties back to climate. And then the third being taking care of people, right? The social aspect. It all comes back to taking care of people, customers, employees, suppliers, it's all people.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think we look at the 17 SDGs and how they permeate across the organization. This is a really exciting time to make sure that we can actually achieve those goals. Time is against us, 30 months to turn this around. 2030 people talk about, I don't think it's the 2030. I think the pressure's on. So I do think we've got the tools available to us today to make this come to life and be successful.
Bahir, thank you so much for your time. It's been delightful to talk with you.
Enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.